Good afternoon, everyone. We apologize for the technical issues we were having, but we do apologize for the delay in the event. But thank you so much. Good afternoon and welcome to Making Your Virtual Placement a Success. My name is Monica Manga and I'll be your moderator for today's session. Before we start, just some housekeeping rules. So please keep your microphones on mute during the presentation and feel free to use the chat feature for any questions you may have during the session. Also, there will be an opportunity to ask questions near the end. In addition, I would like to acknowledge the land in which Humber College resides in. So Humber College is located within the traditional and treaty lands of Mississauga of the Credit, known as Adobe Coke, the place of elders. The Michi-Shagi language, the region is uniquely situated along Humber River watershed, which historically provided integral connection to Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Wyandot, peoples between the Ontario, Lakeshore, and Lake Simcoe, Georgian Bay regions. Now home to people of numerous nations, Adobe Coke continues to provide a vital source of interconnection for all. In addition, I do live in Mississauga, so this same land acknowledgement does apply to me where I'm currently working virtually. So as many of you may be aware, virtual placement has become the new normal due to the pandemic. Today we have with us a panel of experts who work with students and their placements and will offer tips and advice for what to expect for virtual placement and how you can make it a positive and successful experience. So let's start by having each panelist introduce themselves. Chrissy?
Hi everyone, my name is Christy Knapp. I am an internship coordinator with the Faculty of Media and Creative Arts. I've been with Humber for just over a year now, and I am coming from Centennial College, where I was in a similar role for about 5 years prior in the School of Hospitality, Tourism, Culinary Arts. And prior to that, I was a recruitment coordinator with a private firm that specialized in hospitality placements for a few years. So I've read lots of resumes and helped lots of people kind of start their careers over the last 8 to 10 years or so.
Crystal?
Hi everyone, so my name's Crystal. I am a field placement advisor with the Faculty of Social and Community Services, and I've worked specifically with the Bachelor of Child and Youth Care students for the past 3 years. I just completed my master's in higher education, and I'm going to be starting my PhD actually this fall.
Okay. Jumana?
Hi everyone, so I'm Jumana Baker. I'm the marketing specialist, marketing design specialist at Career Edge, where we help new grads find paid internships to help them launch their careers once they're done with school. And I was a Career Edge intern myself, so I kind of know what that journey looks like. And we work with a lot of employers, so I can give you some back end, let's say, information about how to be successful and how to connect with your mentors a lot better.
Great. And Sujata?
Hello everyone, I am Sanjukta Das. I am the Business Placement Advisor for the Faculty of Business Work Integrated Learning Center. I take care of the business management and marketing programs. And yeah, I just love my work because I get to work with a lot of international students. Not many years back, I was in that position. My children were in that groove. And so I do understand their worries, their concerns, their issues. And I enjoy, very strangely, my name, Sanjukta, Monica, you were asking about how to pronounce it, really means someone who connects. And I truly feel I am living my name right now as I keep that work going, liaisoning with employers and with our students. I love my role.
Thank you. Thank you for all those great introductions and some really valuable experience and education you've had. So, Chrissy, I'm going to ask you, how has COVID impacted students' placements?
Thanks, Monica. I mean, I think really it's challenged everyone from industry to the educational institutions to really rethink what remote work looks like and how we can add value and maintain quality experiences for student interns. I really think that everybody has had to consider what working from home looks like, and then the far-reaching effects of working from home. So how does it change things like insurance coverage? How does it change things like compensation? How does it change things like what kind of tools are needed for people to be successful in a remote environment? Last March, when we were all hit with the news that we were going to be working from home, you know, some of our employers were able to pivot much more easily and effectively and quickly than others. But I think at this point, we've kind of got a year under our belts and figured it out. So I'm excited for the students that are going on an internship now. They're better equipped than we were a year ago. And we all kind of know this isn't changing anytime soon. So now we have a skill set that we can see as an opportunity and not sort of a loss, a deficit.
Great, thank you for that. And Sujata, same question. How has COVID impacted students' placements?
Well, I would love to say that it's almost, I completely agree and I mirror everything that Christy has said. Industries have been deeply impacted in different ways, and you know, some have been able to pivot and change their business models, you know, from on-site to working remotely, and that has been a great boon to our students, you know. And from what I see in the Faculty of Business, it's been a 50-50 situation where students are working remotely and students are working on site. So some sectors have had increased opportunities, especially where it is, you know, digital parameters. We do see that it has become very popular. There has been a rise, but, you know, in terms of hospitality, culinary, tourism, travel, sports, recreation, leisure, they have been really impacted hurtfully because of all COVID restrictions and lockdowns. They have been the ones who have had a great, you know, slowdown, I would say. Of course, at our front, we have been working most creatively and finding alternative ways to work with students. You know, we've given them projects, we've given them virtual international internships. We have created on-site, you know, internships. So that has been a great help to students, I would say. So in general, you know, where we were at the beginning of the pandemic, we are in a different spot right now. We have offered some great employment opportunities, and there were many that were withdrawn. It's needless to say, I lost a lot of my employers, but we have been helping them a lot, students a lot, by, you know, cutting hours and you know, giving them alternative completion plans, and that has been a great help. And we've held hands with the students to find opportunities through LinkedIn, through social media, and they have, in general, they have felt supported.
Great, thank you. Yeah, it's definitely been an interesting time for students' placements and with the pandemic. Crystal, has there been a shift in employment hiring within your area?
Thanks, Monica. So in the Faculty of Social and Community Services, it really depends on the program. So there are certain programs like our Developmental Service Worker program. They're actively hiring and seeking students for placements. So that's been great. Other programs, unfortunately, it's been a real challenge for students to secure placement or employment in the field. And again, there are a few reasons for this. So first of all, agencies are concerned about the risks of spreading the virus or having an outbreak. That's a huge concern for our partners. And second of all, a lot of agencies don't have the capacity to supervise students right now because all of their resources are being allocated to other areas. They're having to redevelop programs and services and put them online, and that's taking a lot of manpower. And so, yeah, it's been challenging for a lot of students to get hired with one of our partners.
Absolutely, thank you for that. And Jumana, working at Employment Edge, have you seen a shift in employment hiring within your agency?
Yeah, we have. Well, when the COVID first hit, a lot of the recruitment, similar to the way placements were done, as Sanjukta was talking about, a lot of the employers were pulling out. It was more on the idea that many of them just put their recruitment efforts on hold until they figure out how to work virtually. And as it was previously mentioned, some did a better job at it and bounced back a lot quicker than others. But thankfully, right now, we're kind of seeing a resurgence of everything. Like at this moment, we're closer than we've ever been to last year's activity or like pre-COVID activity, because I feel like people have kind of got a rhythm down. They've got some kind of an onboarding, virtual onboarding, some kind of a routine or system down, communication tools, all of these things they've kind of finessed over the last over the last year. Yeah, I think it's getting better. There are some areas that are recovering a lot quicker than others just based on demand and what people are needing and companies are needing at the moment. But I still do think there's been a lot of demand for communications as well, because there's a lot of people who are, or there are a lot of businesses who are looking to spread messaging about how they're working together to survive post-COVID and how they're contributing back into the community, because that now has become a priority for a lot of them, of how do we help each other survive after this, because we're no longer an individualistic business anymore. So the social impact and corporate social responsibility is starting to take some priority as well. So that's great to see. And as well as like learning, a lot of people are putting a lot of emphasis on learning and making sure everyone's like work-life balance is working, because when you're working from home, there's the tendency to work like 12 hours a day, and we won't be able to go back to the office as easily anymore and being stuck in a cubicle or on a desk all day. So I think a lot of these conversations are happening. But in terms of recruitment, thankfully, there is some recovery happening. So hopefully it'll just keep getting better and better moving forward.
Absolutely. Thank you, both of you, for that, because I'm sure there was a definitely shift, especially in the beginning of the pandemic, because employers were trying to figure out what to do. And then I think now it's been, I can't believe, again, we were talking earlier, it's been a year that we're in this situation. And then I think people are slowly adjusting to it, but it's still definitely a change. Thank you to both of you. Sanjukta, how are virtual internship beneficial to students?
Monica, I just think that even in our understanding, we have graduated to a different level, understanding that, you know, where we were and where we are now. Students are actually, I see a great shift in the students' attitude towards, you know, virtual internships. They have developed their technical skills very, very significantly, I see. Their communication skills have been honed, I see. They're using the Blackboard Collaborate, they're using Zoom, they're using Teams, they're using Google Meets, they're using Skype. So I do see that they are brushing up their technical skills and their communication skills a lot. Students are learning how to use new softwares, I feel, because you know, where they were initially, they were not so welcoming to meeting the employer over the Zoom, and I just see that now they're having interview sessions, and it's amazing how they have adapted to that. On another hand, I do see that their interpersonal communication skills have been brushed up. It is being developed. Initially, they would not feel motivated to switch on the camera, you know, and I'm hearing from more and more employers that could you please tell them to have the camera on? And I have been communicating that to my students, and I do see that now there is a shift and they do feel self-motivated in terms of their self-management, time management. So there is a significant rise in that, you know, resiliency that I see. And you know, their way of communication, they're taking that onus, they are understanding that they are accountable for this. And that has played a big role, I do see. And it is helping the virtual internships to be more productive. There are a lot of opportunities that have arisen. Those are, the virtual international internships that are allowing students to immerse themselves in a very foreign environment, culture, and work ethic, and working with others from different parts of the world. And that has become very, very enriching for them.
Definitely, I think the world has become a smaller place with virtual connection with the students.
And it has allowed us to think, in a new way, do things in a new way. Logistically, it is definitely very efficient in terms of timing, in terms of travel, in terms of accessibility. So what has happened is, on our part as advisors, it has been a responsibility to kind of convey this to them. And, I think the virtual internship has been beneficial. They are developing a lot.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Crystal, the same question. How are virtual internship beneficial to students in your area?
Yeah, so I'll try to add on to that amazing answer. So originally, I think we thought of COVID as potentially a short-term problem, but it has lasted a year, and the impacts of it are probably going to last much longer, and they've changed the way we're working and living. So in terms of the virtual remote placements that students have been doing in this new kind of world we're living in, it's providing them with a different set of skills that are going to be in high demand beyond the pandemic. So, for example, students are developing a unique skill set that includes creativity, critical thinking, and organization skills, and they're learning to use all these different technologies and virtual platforms, which is amazing. And then also, I think my students and students across the faculty have really demonstrated resilience, and they're learning to adapt to different platforms and working remotely. And that's a huge skill that they can put forward on their resume in interviews, that they're able to have resilience and adapt. So I think that's been amazing.
Great, thank you. The next question is, Chrissy, what challenges can students face working remotely, and how can they overcome them?
Awesome. Yeah, I just wanted to add one more element to the previous question, which is, we always talk about college being technical hands-on learning and preparing you for the working world. Right. And I think that we've really can look at the last year and the way we've had to adjust educational content to an online learning environment. We're preparing them for virtual placements long before they get to placement, which is a positive shift. And we've been kind of coaching some of our students to put some of those skills you've gained out of learning online on your resume to showcase that you have experience in remote work, because you've been doing a heavy course load for the last year and managing a lot of projects. And as Crystal and Sanjukta both referenced, they're learning all these new technologies, and they're really getting hands-on experience that was maybe lacking before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I totally agree with that, because there's been so many technologies happening. Like I think TikTok just blew up, and then who knows what's going to be the next popular social media. It's probably in the works right now. So yeah, you're right, and great answer. So I guess
challenges.
Yeah.
Challenges I think are the biggest loss that I feel is the small talk. It's that piece where that organic conversation, the water cooler chat, or the conversation that was had in the car ride to your next meeting with your colleague or your superior, that was such a key component to successful internships. And how do you replicate that? It really puts the onus on the student to find ways to stay connected and to be on top of communication. And again, it's a funny thing where one of the biggest kind of pieces of feedback we would get from employers is that students are lacking those professional communication skills, when they get to us, whereas now they've had to use Slack and they've had to use Teams and they've had to use all these different channels, Discord, all these things that they're now they're coming and they're saying, yeah, that's the only way I could connect with my professor. So I'm well versed in how to use that tool. But I think it really, again, puts the onus on the student to be organized and prepared before they get to their internship so that they know exactly what they want to get out of it, exactly what they want to what goals they want to achieve, and communicate that to their superior or supervisor right from the start so that that time is well used and that networking piece isn't lost in the ether of virtual work.
Absolutely. I think, yeah, the human interaction has definitely been changed since we went on virtual. But yeah, thank you, Chrissy. Jumana, same question. What challenges can students face working remotely and how can they overcome them?
Yeah, basically just reiterating everything Christy said, because that was incredible. That was really the essence of it, is the communication, whether you're talking about connecting with your team on a social level and just like as a human being, or connecting with your mentor or your manager and trying to get feedback from them. How do you navigate that? Excuse me. Or if you feel like you might be getting you're not getting as much feedback as you want because you're not within the same physical space of you can just walk up to somebody or your mentor can just walk up to you. Like, it takes a lot more effort and a lot more proactive effort to go and reach out to all of these people. But some of the tips that you can take, like for example, in my organization, what I've done with some of the members that I'm most close to, for example, at the company and my team members, we just have working sessions, for example. So we don't necessarily work on the same projects, or we're not even in the same departments, but just the fact that we can hear each other breathing at least, and we're all working on our own little thing, but it's still a virtual meeting. We feel like we're still together. That really has made a difference. Connect with other team members within the company and just have some one-on-one time, whether it's learning about their background, learning about what they do, what their interests are, and just get that mentorship going, that networking piece going. Ask your mentor how they like to communicate. Do they like to use chat? Is it okay for you to send them like 20 chat messages a day? Like, is there a limit? Like, do they use the statuses properly? So for example, some people, their team status when they're busy, they're not actually busy. So do these mean anything? So if you ever have any doubts about anything, the best way you can do it is just ask them what their preferences are. Like, are they okay to jump into like a quick 10-minute meeting just to get some of your questions answered? Some people like to pre-plan everything. So it's good to ask these questions and see what their preferences are, how they use those tools, so that you are able to be to communicate well with them without feeling like you're like overbearing or anything along those lines. Because at the end of the day, it is a learning experience for you, and you want to make sure you're getting the most out of it.
Absolutely, great answer. Anyone else on the panel want to add to that question about challenges?
I was just thinking, if I can add, the wearing of masks, and covering the face, and that being very aware that, you have a responsibility.
Absolutely, yeah, that's also changed because now you can only, when you're outside, you can only see the eyes of people. So you're losing maybe the full facial expression of something. But those are great ideas. I really liked Jumana's answer and having that working group. Even though it's virtual, you're still kind of together virtually, and you're able to ask each other questions. But yeah, thank you to all of you for that answer.
And just to add, it also like keeps you accountable to like getting work done and not getting distracted, because you can see someone watching you working. So
oh, that's true.
It kind of helps keep each other motivated.
No, that's true. I didn't think of that. Yeah, that's great. Crystal, how can students better prepare themselves working virtually?
So there are a few things that I feel students could do to help prepare themselves for the virtual environment. First is having clear goals and responsibilities prior to starting your placement. This is so crucial to start thinking about what is your purpose and what experiences are going to be most meaningful to you. So thinking about what skills and knowledge you want to develop, and how can you potentially approach a supervisor or colleagues to help you develop those skills. Also having a designated workspace and keeping all of your work in one area so it's not sprawled out all over your house and you have a space where you're going to be productive. Identifying different organization techniques that are going to allow you to follow up on tasks. So whether that's a to-do list, a calendar, using different communication apps, whatever works for you, but making sure you have those pieces in place to stay organized. And then also just taking the time to learn different platforms and become familiar with them because you'll be using them in that virtual environment.
Great, thank you. Some really great points. And Sujatha, same question. How can students better prepare themselves in working virtually?
Well, she's almost said everything, but I would also like to include that the students really need to be told that there has to be a schedule, there has to be a routine in place. Just because it's a virtual thing, it does not mean the essence is being lost. Mm-hmm. It is work. You are going to be assessed. You are going to be supervised. So there is a huge need for a schedule. There is a huge need to, have a routine in place. And also, as she mentioned, that confirming with the employer that what are your expectations, what is the check-in time, what mode of communication would you prefer, and how do you want the reporting to be an ongoing process, and carrying this information to the student so that the student is informed and takes that informed decision to deliver the work. So, I personally feel that students need to be aware of the tools that they would need in the job, keeping it handy, being available and not switching off the camera, because this is the new norm.
Absolutely, yeah. Schedule is certainly a very important aspect in people's lives.
Yeah,
Christy,
if I can just add something really quickly
sure.
to that. Regarding the schedule, one of my coworkers was talking about how he has like a ritual of starting work and ending work, because when we used to go to the office, you'd have that commute as your ritual. So you have you're setting your brain to get started on working and being productive, and then your commute home is the way that you disconnect from work. So try to find a ritual that can kind of help your train your brain of this is when I'm active, this is when I'm disconnecting. Because if you're still thinking about work when you're supposed to be resting, you're not really resting and you're still going to be exhausted. And that's why when people are like, oh, I went to sleep, I'm still so tired. Well, it's yeah, you've been thinking about work for 24 hours. You haven't really rested anything. Right. So think of a way that you can create a routine or a ritual to get started or to disconnect, so that you're really able to train your brain and your body of this is where this happens, and avoid working in bed because you won't be able to sleep then.
Beautiful.
That's true.
I was going to say too, when you start a new endeavor, change your space. Even if your desk doesn't move, take everything off, clean it off, get a new plant, do something that makes it feel fresh. So if you're working in your bedroom and you're in a corner, switch corners, just change it up so your brain realizes. But that's such a good point, Jumana. And I always love, somebody told me years ago about setting a 90-minute timer and work for 90 minutes and then take a break, because if you don't, you forget to take care of yourself. And students are there's pressure that we put on ourselves when we're in internship, that this is my one chance to get it right. So, the only way to alleviate that pressure is to remember to take care of yourself. Take those breaks. I love that idea, Jumana, about setting, the ritual, because, for me, I've never had a year go faster in my life. And it's not maybe time I want back, but I'm missing it.
Right. No, those are great points, especially with mental health. It's very important to, get away from what you're doing on a regular basis, because that can certainly have an effect on it. Yeah, thank you all. Really great points. So Jumana, what tips can you provide to students about being successful working remotely?
Just reiterating a lot of the things that we talked about before was really have a goal in mind when you're going into that internship. Know exactly what you want to get out of it. And Crystal was talking about it in the previous question quite well, really well, of know what you want to get out of it, know the skills that you want to learn, know the software, the tools that you want to learn, and the ideas, so that you aren't able to measure yourself at a halfway point or when you're almost done of like, did I achieve this? Do I need to pivot? What do I need to do in order to get the most out of it? And ask for feedback if you need it, because you don't know if you're doing well or if you're achieving those goals. You might know it personally, but it's also good to know if there's anything you're missing from an industry expert. And the internship gives you that incredible experience and opportunity to connect with an industry expert, get that knowledge transfer from them. They have many years of experience that they can then forward onto you and give you all of these like exclusive insights that you wouldn't have known otherwise unless you've spent the same amount of years within that industry as well. And yeah, be proactive about connecting with people. Don't be like, people are a lot nicer than you would think. No one is actually judging you or thinking about, I know it's going to sound really badly, but no one thinks about us as much as we think about ourselves.
Yes.
So that's just the general rule of, I know sometimes it can be intimidating to speak to somebody at a company that's higher up than you or a manager or something like that, but they've hired you for a reason. They've brought you on board because they're dedicated to your own success. So show them that you're just as dedicated and prove them right in their choice.
Great, thank you. Great advice. And Chrissy, because your faculty is very creative and typically they go on site for their placements, how do you think a student in the creative industry would be successful working remotely?
We go on site very often. Is that what you're suggesting?
Well,
most of our students don't.
Like the film students and.
Yeah. I mean, I think really it's about setting the expectation before you start. You know, whether you're in person or whether you're working remotely, you want to really set yourself up. So, you know, whether you're completing a learning plan so that you've got really clear goals, share that with your supervisor, ask for a one-on-one before you start, have plot points on a calendar where you're going to achieve certain things, or even if it's just set up networking opportunity. So, you know, when we're in person, that you lose out on that opportunity too, because it becomes organic, it becomes habitual. You're going in every day. I saw them, I've talked to them, it's fine. But maybe you didn't make the most of that time. So plotting out and setting those expectations and communicating to everyone around you, even if you live with family or roommates, tell them what your internship schedule is going to be, because you don't want them, especially if you're working from home, you don't want them interrupting, making noise in the next room when you've got a certain set amount of time you want to achieve some great successes in. I think a really good tip to set the expectation for ourselves is to remember that you as a student are interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. And just like Jumana said, you've been chosen for a reason. You have a skill set that they desire. You have an ability to produce something that they really need. So, you know, just remember that you are a student first, and you're there to learn. Your job is to ask questions and just communicate. People can't help you if they don't know what you need.
Exactly. Sanjutha, what tips can you give? I know that you work with a lot of business students, how they can be successful working remotely.
I think everything has been said, but I'd like to also mention that I have referred the Humber Working at Home Guide, the employee well-being and engagement link, and I have shared it with the students as a tool. I often over the Blackboard Collaborate, ask them how they're doing and assure them that, if they tell me I could share more resources. This sharing has been of great help, actually. And on another hand, some have issues of about networking. So what I do is I go to Eventbrite and I do see that there are, free Eventbrite networking events. So I take the link and I share the link on the announcement on the Blackboard, and I tell them because I am talking to them in the class about attending networking events, and they're not proactively looking for those events. I provide this, and I have often seen that this has helped. So they are free, and now in the class they're learning how to network and what it means to network. And when that comes to them as a link, they are ready to try it out. So I do think that helping them out with that has helped. Also telling them if they have issues, they need to incorporate a little bit of quiet times, meditation time for themselves in order to combat certain issues. And I mean, just giving them suggestions, creating that ongoing communication has been a great way.
Great. Thank you for that. Crystal, the last question. How do you think students can build relationships and networking working virtually? I know Sujata kind of alluded a little bit of that in her last answer, but in your area, how do you think that they can elude that?
Sure. So the first thing I wanted to mention is this has been a really challenging and difficult time. And I think one thing we have to keep in mind is just being respectful of other people's time. We don't necessarily know what people are going through, whether that's your peers or colleagues. So just having a lens of empathy and understanding for others and keeping that in mind in all of your interactions. And in terms of building relationships and networking virtually, it's important to show up and have your camera on. By doing that, you're already setting yourself apart because a lot of people won't have their camera on, so you want to shine. And just treat the interactions you have like any other professional interaction. So giving time for responses, introducing yourself to people in the virtual room, let people know what you can offer, and also offer to meet with people from your team in a one-on-one capacity and learn from them. And then also taking initiative for potentially team building activities with your colleagues or peers. Checking in, scheduling. On our team, we do virtual coffee chats, and that's just a time for us to kind of get to know each other more personally and check in and make sure everybody's okay. And then also attending virtual events. So there's still all these ways to get involved and network with people. It just might take a little bit more initiative to put yourself out there.
Do they have to bring their own coffee?
Yes.
Chrissy, how do you think you can build relationships or networks working remotely?
I think Crystal nailed it. I mean, I think, it's setting the tone before you start. It's taking risks, putting yourself out there, turn your camera on. If you find something that's funny, make sure it's tasteful, but share it with the team, to kind of let them know that there's more than just you have a personality. Be respectful and just appreciative, and you will go far.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Jumana, did you want to add anything to that about networking?
Well, that was incredible. I don't think there's much to add. There is just this one platform. A lot of you may be actually familiar with it. Is 10,000 Coffees. Mm-hmm. So that is literally a networking platform. So LinkedIn did start as a networking platform, but things kind of got muddled a little bit there. With jobs and other priorities, but for 10,000 Coffees is literally just a networking platform. So anyone that's on there is willing to network and is open to connecting with people. So that could be easier for you to connect with somebody. And like there's a list of professionals, different years of experience, different industries. So that could be an easy way in to get you comfortable reaching out to people. Right. And when it comes to the actual networking, it's good to be prepared, but you don't need to have like a script done and like you're following a script. You could have a general theme, like an exploration of who they are, what they do, what makes them tick. Or if you have specific questions, that's also great. But don't feel like you're restricted to, I don't know what to ask them. I don't know what the questions are. I'm not sure, like, what if I get lost? It's just a curiosity conversation, mm-hmm. right? What are you curious about? Like, what sparks joy in their work? It might not be specific to their job, but it could be also like, why did they choose to join that company instead of this one? Why is it a small company instead of like a big enterprise? Why did they franchise? Like general themes for you to understand a bit better. And don't worry too much about the details. As long as you're prepared and you're willing to learn, and I think that's you're already ahead.
Absolutely, yeah, all great points, because networking is very important. Even if you're not deciding to go into that industry, you never know who you can connect it or who they know. That was all the questions I had. It was real. Thank you so much for participating into this panel discussion. We're just going to open it up to the chat. So if anyone has any questions, or if you feel comfortable, feel free to turn on your mic to ask the questions to any of the panelists. Don't be shy. They're very lovely people.
It's moments like these where I'd love to have the Jeopardy background music going on. That would be lovely.
Well, if anyone knows how to sing, feel free.
I would not torture
Yeah,
you.
we want to encourage them to stay on and ask questions. Not
Yeah.
Well, I'll ask a question for all of you. Anyone or all of you can answer. What do you enjoy working? How has it changed your work habits in terms of working virtually with the students?
I feel like I've actually had more students reach out to me than I've ever experienced before, which has been really great to schedule phone calls or have like a virtual meeting over Zoom. And just I had the opportunity to get to know my students on a deeper level because of those interactions. And we've also offered more information sessions for students. So having that FaceTime over online has been great.
Awesome.
I do have some questions.
Sure.
So I'll start with the first one. With the future of work being remote, do you feel certain industries have more jobs than others?
I can take that one. I believe so. As a communications program, it's probably not fun to hear that other industries are actually recovering a lot quicker. But it's just, again, needs-based. Things ebb and flow. Some industries are going to be in higher demand than others, and it's just a cyclical thing. At some point in time, other industries are also going to be high in more demand. Right now, it's definitely logically the IT sector that's really booming because everything's going virtual. Everyone's setting up their virtual remote online working. A lot of people, as we mentioned earlier in the conversation, are transforming to online only. So I think Shopify, for example, was one of these companies that decided to move virtual permanently. So they're not ever going back physically. And there's a lot of that happening everywhere. So what that means is that there's going to be a lot more support required from an IT infrastructure perspective. But that also means that there's going to be a lot more need for communications as well to make sure that that transition, whether it's internal communications or external or PR, all of these areas are also going to be needed. So this is just from like my quick experience. I'm not really a recruiter. So just observational from some of the employers that we've been speaking to.
Great, thank you.
I just would like to add something to this, Monica. I just feel that a lot of small businesses are gearing towards remote support, online support. Right. So a lot of I see a lot of my students being engaged with small businesses, and when they probably had a small store, and after everything closed down, they realized the need of an online presence, and they didn't know how to create an Instagram account.
Right.
And so when my students were giving that support that I can make these posts for you on a daily basis, they were overjoyed, and they have hired as well. So I do see that there has been a shift in that sector with the small businesses.
Great. We have 1 more minute left. Melanie, any other questions on the chat?
Yes. The other question that we had was, this student is studying outside of Canada and saying, you know, knowing that they may still have to study outside of Canada because of governmental policies, can co-op take place remotely outside of Canada if there are still restrictions due to COVID-19 to returning to Canada?
I can take that question. We've had, and I mean, others are most welcome to say, but yeah, we have a lot. I have a number of my students who are doing it remotely, and I set up calls on the Zoom. I tell my student that it's your responsibility. Bring your employer on Zoom. Let's have a quick chat. And it's been working wonders. It is a little bit of a tweaking here and there with my timing, but so far so good. I mean, yes, sorry if somebody else wants to say something, but
I think, yeah, we're doing the same in the Faculty of Media and Creative Arts. We allow students to, I mean, we not only allow them, we support them to sort of find what's the best fit for them.
yes.
And if you're studying remotely, some students have not been able to come back to Canada, but their intention is to eventually come back. And
Right.
so what I think is really cool is, I remember a year ago, January, saying to a student standing in front of me, which seems so bizarre now, no, you know, we don't really want students to do remote placements.
Yes.
So no, you can't work for this magazine that's based in LA, even though that's your dream job.
Right.
Now I'm like, wow, now you can connect to LA and maybe you can move there one day when you're done. And like, we've all shifted. We've all kind of realized that it can work and how to make it work. Whereas before it was kind of an easy no. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there that we can kind of look towards rather than what doors have closed.
Correct.
Thank you. Melanie, do we have time for any other questions?
Yeah, there are two other questions. I don't think it'll take long to answer them. The student is asking, are they able to pick their own placement or do they need to pick from Humber?
What program are you in?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Ah,
And it might be that it's program specific, right? So
Yeah.
they would need to connect with their placement advisor to determine that. Yeah.
I think that's the best answer.
And then is it possible or realistic to find a paid job for our placement?
Yes, it is realistic. I mean, I think when we as placement advisors talk to employers, we encourage them to pay. You get what you pay for. That is true of everything in life, right? So we encourage them. Toronto is an expensive city to live in. The world is an expensive place to exist. So we encourage you to seek out paid placements. So I think what you need to do is look at what you're getting out of it. So if it's not paid, are you getting an enriched experience that is in line with your career goals, and will it benefit you in the future? You know, you don't want to only look for paid placements because you might be limiting yourself from opportunities that could benefit you otherwise. But I think it's okay. I think we're all comfortable acknowledging to each other that paid is better, you know, and we tell the employers that all the time.
Yeah.
I want to say though, you know, further to the conversation about opening doors, internship, that word, placement, co-op, work study, stagiaire, whatever you call it, it opens doors. So an employer is much more willing to have a conversation with you about, because they've probably been through it themselves. So if you message them on LinkedIn and say, I'm a multimedia design and development student, I have 140 hours of internship to accomplish between this date and this date, can we talk? They're much more likely to contact you to return the call or the message versus I'm job hunting, can you help? Right? And applicant tracking systems are the bane of most recruiters, companies, candidates' existence. And again, internship is a nice way to sort of get around those ATS systems, because most of the applications that go through these systems aren't getting read anyway. So cold calling, saying, I'm an intern, how can I help? That is like music to most companies' ears, right?
Some good advice.
Great answers. And again, thank you to all four of you for presenting at today's session. I certainly learned a lot from you as well, from all of you. So thank you, and everyone who joined. Thank you so much for joining today's session. And don't forget, there's the keynote speaker, Brandon Gomez, that's going to be presenting tomorrow. So please register if you want to see this person present, and also make sure you're checking out the Career Month calendar for any other events that you may be interested in attending. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you, Monica, and everybody. This was wonderful. Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.